In today's episode, we'll be following Phil Galfond on high-stakes poker with blinds of 400, 800, and with an ante of 100. In this cash game, Phil Lock raises pre-flop to 2,500. The action is now on Galfond on the small blind with 4-3 of spades. With this hand, it's a bad idea to call with no position, and because Lock has a tight image, Galfond decided to raise to 11,500 in the hopes of taking the pot. The big folds and Lock calls. On the flop, Galfond hits bottom pair. Now the board in this hand is a very straightforward board, with a couple of up and down and gut shot draws, but there was a raise and a re-raise pre-flop, so it's hard to put Lock on one of those hands. The pot is now 24,600, and Galfond bets a bit more than half a pot, trying to keep representing an overpair. Lock raises to 40,200, and the action goes back to Galfond. Now the question here is, what does Lock think Galfond has with that raise? In this case, if Lock has a big hand, why is he raising so much and preventing Galfond from continuing to fire on the turn? If Lock, on the other hand, thinks Galfond has a big hand, it seems that his bet is again too much on this dry board. In most cases with this sort of board, if Lock has a set, he'll just call or raise smaller, where if he has a medium pocket pair or one pair hand like 6-7, 9-8, or 10-9, he'll call or bet bigger like he did and try to buy the pot. Now when the action comes back to Galfond, all four options to choose from look fine, but Galfond's trying to tell a story in his hand from the pre-flop, and it seems like he wants to stick with this story of representing a big overpair. And this board texture is perfect for Galfond to exploit the situation with his story. As I mentioned, it doesn't seem that with his big raise that Lock has a set. It also doesn't seem like Lock was trapping from pre-flop with aces or kings. This is why Galfond can easily sell the story that he has a big overpair by raising. If Galfond just calls, it won't go along with what he's trying to represent in the hand, so the only choices for him are folding or raising, and since Galfond wants to stick with his story, he goes all in. He did this for a couple of reasons. The first is that Phil Lock can't call with a hand like pocket tens, jacks, or a pair smaller than that. The second is that this raise is going along with his story. And the third is if Phil still calls, and assuming he doesn't have a set, Galfond still has outs. It turns out, though, Lock had the best hand with pocket sevens, but as I mentioned earlier, it's hard to commit all the chips with that pair.